Hello, 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 my lovelies. Let's unravel a sweater. So there were a ton of requests for this video, and I'm only getting around to posting it now because January is my birthday month and I like keeping myself busy when it's winter. When I was a junior in high school, one of my teachers told me that when she was our age, she and her friends wouldn't just have birthdays, they would be celebrating for the whole month. And then I realized that the only limit to me celebrating is my bank account and my schedule, so here's a short recap of my January. Hi, it's editing me and I would like to formally apologize. I just took out 5 minutes from this recap because I didn't realize how long this video was going to be, and I also didn't realize that it was going to take me 3 months to film and edit. That is not fully the fault of the complexity of this video. I also had some life stuff going on, which is now been taken care of. And I'm super excited to show it to you once I get the go-ahead. That said, I did keep these 2 updates because I thought they were important and I'm excited to share them with you. So I just got a very special package in the mail. If you've been following my Instagram for a little while, I have been looking for this for almost a year now. After I had a lot of issues with carpal tunnel and just struggling to keep up with my brain, I figured that, hey, maybe if I really want to continue this and I want to work with lighter yarn, it might be time to get an industrial knitting machine. And I found one. Behold, my new knitting machine. I just put this together. I have no idea how to use it, and that's what I'm going to be figuring out for the next few months. I do have one thing that I want to finish this year on this machine. I know it's probably going to take me a really long time to figure this out, but when I do, there will be a video on it. Yeah. I don't know what else to say. Last weekend, I also went to Vogue Knitting Live, so I didn't really know what to expect, but I had a lot of fun. I went pretty early and I got some discount codes. I went pretty early and I got some discount codes and some freebies. Later on, I took a knitting break and I met up with Marina. And the crazy thing is, we met some people who recognized us, and I never actually thought that that would happen. Whose dog is that? We also got interviewed by the Making Up.
Another thing that we've been talking about a lot is this like weird dynamic of crochet and knitting not being on the same level playing field. Yeah. How do you feel like we could be more craft inclusive with crochet and knitting?
Don't buy into it.
Don't buy into it.
It's a capitalist scam.
Much more into it than she is.
I won't lie, I was not ready to be interviewed at all. So there's a bunch of times where I'm just yapping away and my acting training just went out the window. But that aside, it was really nice to talk about issues that are directly affecting our community, as well as what we're looking forward to this year. Okay, you've heard me talk enough, so let's get to the unraveling tips. To preface this, if you still have questions after this walkthrough / tutorial, I get most of my information on unraveling from the Unravelers subreddit, YouTube, Google search, and as well as my own comment section. If you have any other questions that you can't find online, drop them below and me or some of the commenters will see if we can help you. That is what community is about. Also, if you're not sure, just remember that it is a thrifted secondhand sweater. You can make mistakes. This unraveling is a process of learning. Even just knitting and crochet and fiber work in general is all about experimentation and trying again until you get the result that you want. Let's have a little terminology lesson. So frogging refers to the act of ripping out rows of stitches or undoing an entire project. Basically, what you're doing is taking the yarn and just ripping it. You just rip it, rip it, rip it, and that repetition sounds like a frog. That is literally the reason it's called frogging. Tinking, on the other hand, refers to the act of unknitting one stitch at a time. So if you see a mistake, maybe 5 stitches away, you don't have to rip out the whole row. You can knit backwards and pull your working yarn out until you reach that mistake and you can fix it. I did this little terminology lesson because there was someone in my comments who mixed up the definitions. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. When you're thinking about how much you want to spend or how much money you want to set aside for buying a secondhand sweater for unraveling, keep in mind that unraveling takes a really long time. Maybe not that long, but like it takes time and effort. In the States, I typically look for sweaters in my size anywhere between $5 to $15 per sweater. It's even better if you can get them from a family member or a community member who is looking to give away a sweater/sweaters for one reason or another. Something to note is that, oh my gosh, sorry, my contact just moved. Something to note is that even if you do have a sweater in your size, it's not likely that you're going to have enough yarn to make a sweater in your size. This can be due to tension or stitch differences, whether you're knitting or crocheting, how you join your yarn, etc. There's a lot of different factors that goes into this. Again, it's something to experiment with. That said, if you are shopping or thrifting, I wouldn't recommend buying sweaters more than a size above your own. It's important to remember that thrift stores are a community resource, and we should make sure that individuals who might have a harder time finding their own size at these prices can still find cute clothes. That said, thrift stores are not your only option. You can also look at Facebook Marketplace, estate sales in your area, eBay, as I mentioned before, family members or community members. I know that depending on where you're watching, thrift stores might not be a common resource for you. So find what you would pay for new yarn of the same weight and fiber and cut that value in half since it is used. That number is going to be your budget. Now, what to look for when you're shopping. So you're going to want to look for a sweater with slip stitch seams or sewn seams, not serge seams. This is a serger. Typically, sergers are used to finish off garments, basically by interlocking two layers of fabric together, so then fraying won't happen as easily. It does that by cutting off the excess to make sure that you have a clean seam interlocked between the overthread and the underthread. Sorry, it's been a long time since I took my costuming class and I have no idea what the terminology is anymore. Anyways, serging along the shoulders of a sweater is okay because it's perpendicular to the knit fabric. Typically, machine knits are knit from the bottom up. If it ends here, it can be serged and it might be cut, but you will still have a continuous thread of yarn throughout. On the other hand, serged sides are not okay because, like I said, worked from the bottom up, which means that if it's serged and cut at the sides, you will be working with individual threads. You don't want to be joining every 10 inches of yarn because that's no fun. If you do end up with a sweater with serged sides, depending on the fiber, it might be okay because you can card the yarn and respin the fibers, but that'll take a lot more work and supplies, and yarn spinning is a whole other ballgame. That is not what this video is about. There are some other circumstances to look out for when you are unraveling a sweater. I haven't encountered these myself, but I will cover them briefly just so then you are aware. Some sweaters are knitted with alternate rows of yarn. So based on my research, you're going to unravel and end up with two different balls of yarn for one panel. So in this case, try unraveling fully all the way to the edge of the panel and then also unraveling the next row at the same time. And then, oh gosh! And then see if that frees up the previous yarn to unravel the next row. That doesn't make sense if I don't have something to show you, so just be aware that if this is something you encounter, it's not a mistake. Some sweaters that are made with a yoke rather than set in sleeves might have serged seams, so the threads in those areas will be short, but after you pass that and when you start working on the body and the sleeves, then it will unravel normally. If there are holes in your sweater, that might be okay, but you want to make sure that that's not insect damage. You can knit and crochet the yarn in multiple plies if you're worried about the strength of the yarn. But that being said, if you're not sure if the holes are from insect damage or not, I would not suggest using that yarn for bigger projects. As for yarn type, if you are looking to thrift a sweater to use the extra yarn for practice or to try something or play around. An acrylic or a synthetic blend is completely fine. What we're unraveling today is an acrylic slash a synthetic. I would pay much less for synthetics than I would for natural fibers or much rarer fibers to find in knitted sweaters. For example, silk. Silk is strong, you will be fine unraveling it. There's not much else I have to say about that. For natural fibers, if you touch the sweater and you feel like the yarn is brittle, or if you're unraveling it and you feel like it's ready to break, it's probably better to be used for a felting project instead. You can try gently washing it with wool wash or Eucalan, hair conditioner, lanolin, if you're assuming that it's very dry. It could also be breaking because of insect damage that you can't see. That's the difficult part of this. That said, the fiber could have also broken down with time and wear, and instead of the fibers being twisted into the yarn, it could have felted into the fibers next to it. So when unraveling, it would have broken the yarn structure, making it unsuitable for anything other than felting. That being said, if the yarn is a natural fiber and it's fuzzy and felting, it's going to be a lot harder to unravel, and the yarn may look a little scraggly after unraveling. These fibers are really worth it if it is a rarer natural fiber like cashmere or silk or Angora. I don't know if there's many Angora sweaters that are mass-produced these days. When you're unraveling, the texture will change. Keep that in mind. I did not know this before I unraveled my last sweater, so I was kind of shocked. If you like the fluffiness, once you have knitted or crocheted with your unraveled yarn, you can brush your finished object out with a cap brush or a fine comb. Gently. You're also going to want to look at the sweater label, not just for what fiber you're using, but also how to care for that fiber, especially if you're going to be putting it in the washer once you're done with it. You don't want to accidentally throw a hand wash only sweater into the washer, because then it might felt and then all your hard work would have gone away. If it says dry clean only, then you hand wash it. Be very careful when you're removing labels like this, because you don't want to unnecessarily break the yarn. You won't be losing that much yarn, but it's also better to have more than to intentionally lose some, right? Labels should typically be sewn on with a top stitch, or they might be sewn into the seam. Regardless, remove it with a seam ripper. The seam ripper will make sure that you are accurately removing the top stitch, so then you can easily take off the tag. If you want to dye your yarn after you've unraveled, I haven't done that yet, so I can't give you that much advice, but I would suggest choosing the right dye for the right fiber. For example, if you want a lot of color payoff, use acid dye for natural fibers. There's not much else I can say, so let's move on. Now, in terms of yarn weight, you're going to be looking for anything between a heavy sport yarn to a chunky yarn. So that's going to be like a 2.5 to a 5 or a 6 if you can find one. 7 even. That way it's easier to see your stitches and unravel, and it's also easier to knit and crochet. You can unravel lace weight sweaters, but it's more likely to break easily when you're unraveling. Again, like I said earlier, you can double or triple the yarn to give it strength, or you can drop spindle it to spin the fibers together. I mentioned this earlier, but I want to revisit it. The yarn might lose some of its squish or fiber density if it sheds while you're unraveling it. When I unraveled my sweater, I didn't really see that much of a difference, to be honest. Especially after I washed it / steamed it, it seemed to kind of go back to where it was. But as always, make a gauge swatch. When you're shopping, I also recommend smelling the sweater. You can clean the smells out, but less stinky is preferred, obviously. You can wash machine knits in the wash, but again, read your label. I would suggest adding gentle detergent to a very gentle cycle, but be careful when doing this, because smells may transfer to other clothes that you are washing with it. Similar colors should be washed together. Fun fact, some fabric softeners coat the fabric or the fibers rather than actively lathering it to soften it, so it makes it harder to clean and actually traps dirt and bad smells in, while also giving it an artificial soft feel that doesn't last as long. One of my allergies actually includes fragrance, so This is a topic I'm very familiar with. If you're nervous about machine washing and you're nervous about felting, I would highly suggest hand washing. It works just as well. Add detergent to a bowl of water. You can also add baking soda and or vinegar and let it soak for however long you feel it needs to. I wouldn't do it for more than an hour. You could do more. This sweater was so stinky when I got it and I didn't realize it in the store. What worked for me with this sweater was airing it out in the sun. I would hang it and just leave it in the sun for the entire day. The direct exposure to UV, there's no more smell. It's actually incredible. You could also spray the whole thing with vinegar and then leave it in direct sunlight again and repeat this until the smell is completely gone. Again, the cleaning process depends on the fiber, so for the third time, read your label. And if you need to decontaminate the sweater, if you're not sure if it has bugs and you're worried, freezing does not kill bed bugs. But 45 minutes in the dryer on high heat does. I'm reading. If you're using natural fibers, your sweater must be 100% dry for you to put it in the dryer and avoid shrinking or felting. For the fourth time, read your label. So the part you've all been waiting for. Taking it apart. So I usually start at the neckline, the shoulder, or the side seams, and then take the sweater apart into its separate pieces. So the turtleneck, if it has one, 2 sleeves, and then the front and the back panel, etc., such as ribbing, if that's separate as well. Then I find the yarn ends of each panel and I pick at those until I can start just ripping it. And typically, machine knit sweaters are knit from the bottom up for the main sections, so they unravel from the opposite direction, top down. Logic. So when you're done, you're going to want to skein them with a yarn swift or something similar. You do not need to buy a yarn swift or a ball winder for this project unless you really want to. It might make things easier, but maybe not for your wallet. What I do, I have an adjustable chair, so I just adjust the armrests when I'm ready to take the skein off the chair. The reason why we're putting it in skeins is because it's a lot easier to wash and steam. If you put it in a cake, it's going to take forever to dry. I know it might seem easier to just put it in a cake so it's ready, but you do still need to wash it and steam it. If you have a spinning chair like this one, you could also put a box on a chair and just spin it around. I'm not doing that because my chair is a little bit triangle shaped. It's ergonomic. Just kidding. I actually did want to see what happened if I did this, and I was worried that the yarn would get caught in my chair, but it works surprisingly well. Honestly, if you have a big enough box and a tall enough box, this could definitely work. I highly recommend this method. It's pretty low intensity, if you ask me. You could also use 2 chair backs and then walk around it, wrapping the skein between the 2 chair backs, and then just move the chairs when you're ready to take it off. When you're done unraveling, it's gonna look like noodles, okay? I'm not sure if you do this before or after washing, but I would steam them to get all the curls out and relax the fibers. If it's a plant fiber and you're doing this for a casual project, I've heard people say that you don't have to steam out your yarn, but it might affect your gauge, so it's better to be on the safe side. That said, you don't need to knit and crochet this yarn. You can felt it, or you can do something else with it if you so choose. I didn't really know how to do this. I've gotten some advice to wash it in hot water, which didn't work the first time, but I want to give a shout out to BeckHill6642 for giving a lot of tips to a bunch of people in the comments. They say, if you steam the yarn, the kinks will drop out. Even washing won't get the kinks fully out of the yarn. I just boil and reboil the kettle and hang the skeins over the spout, shaking the yarn to aid the process. But a pot on the stove would work better. Just be careful not to burn yourself. Steam burns are awful. Thank you for sharing. Love your video. Chipmunk Warcry in this thread asked any advice or experience on how the steam setting on an iron works for this process. And then Beck Hill says, I'd be very wary of using an iron for steaming. Kettle or a pot of water are safer for the yarn, but don't let the iron touch the yarn, only the steam. And pick up the skein and shake the kinks out between steam jets. Lots of water in the iron, and most have a button for extra steam. I'd use that function. Okay. You don't require pressure to eliminate the kinks. The steam itself does all the magic. You could hang the skeins up and use a cheap steamer used for clothes if you have one. Probably on highest setting for as much steam as you can get. Good luck. I don't have a clothing steamer. I did have one at one point in my life, but it just did not work on getting out the wrinkles in my clothes, so we returned it. What I'm going to do is try out the pot of water and also try out the steam setting on my iron. Welcome to the kitchen. I have my pot. I need to fill it up with water. My only issue is that I don't know how I'm gonna hang these skeins because this right here is my microwave. I'm only going to do 2 skeins at once / one at a time. One is the cotton acrylic skein, one is the 100% acrylic skein. I will figure something out. I want to like put the yarn on the part that I eat food on. So maybe if I... Oh yeah! It's been 2 minutes and I'm already impatient. It's starting to simmer, so let's just see what happens. A nice hot bowl of suspended noodles. I wonder if it's low enough. Or I wonder if I should actually be holding it over the pot, like manually, so it's a little bit closer. But you know, I think this is fine. Very nice. I'm not sure if this is what is meant by shaking it. You know, something does seem to be happening. Like, I see the condensation collecting on the fibers, so I'll check back in like 5-10 minutes. It's 2 a.m. voiceover me again. Yeah, so I spent 15 to 30 minutes here with minimal results. It's a lot flowier and it's definitely lighter. It looks a little bit thinner. Still a few kinks in the yarn. I feel like I could get these out easily though with the iron or the kettle. So let's go ahead and try the kettle. This is what it's supposed to look like. Like, look at the difference. This is how it started. And this is the completely steamed out yarn. That's actually kind of crazy. Hang on. So the kettle took me about like 30 minutes. No, that's a lie. 45 minutes to straighten out one half of the skein. Tell me why I used like the steam setting on my iron and this whole side just got straight in a second. Here, let me show you. Literal magic. It relaxes so quickly. And this is acrylic, so I was kind of worried about it melting if the iron is as close to it, but you know, as long as it's not touching and I'm using the steamer, then it's fine. That was so fast! I could have just done this the whole time! So we're done unraveling and here is what it looks like. It looks like rice noodles! Today is Lunar New Year, so Happy Lunar New Year or Chinese New Year, depending on what you call it and if you celebrate. The fibers are much more relaxed and it's way flowier, so thank you, Beckel, for the very helpful tip. The hottest steam setting on my iron ended up being the most helpful and the fastest. Here's one more side-by-side comparison. Look at how light this looks, and this one is much denser. Ramen noodles, rice noodles. If you don't have a ball winder, that is completely okay. You could just hang the skein up or put it loosely on your Swift to wrap it into a ball, like so. And, oh god. Alright, and I don't have anything else to say, I don't think. That is a wrap on our January recap and unraveling video. If you guys, what is my outro? I also want to take this moment to thank you guys so much for over 12,000 of you. Updated correction, over 14,000, which is actually crazy. Around this time last year, I think I only had 800 or so subscribers, so it's so wonderful to meet all of you and have you guys along for the ride. If you want to see more, I am on other platforms and I do occasionally post different updates on those. But regardless, thank you guys. I can't wait to see what this year brings for us. What is my outro? Again, if you have any questions, please drop them down below in the comments. I or another commenter will try to answer them for you. Thank you guys for your interest in this topic. I'm happy to cover it and I'd be more than happy to cover any other topics you guys are interested in as well. Stick around because March, April maybe? I'm gonna be dropping a crochet tutorial. Okay, that's all I have to say. If you enjoyed this video, kindly hit the like and subscribe button to join the stitches in our seams and I will be seeing you next time. Bye!